I had been up all day partying with my older brother and his friends and celebrating his first home renovation that we had all helped in finishing up. It was almost going on 6 p.m. when I realized that I should be leaving. I had a long drive back to Vegas, and I would need to leave then and there if I wanted to get back on time. After dropping my brother's friends off in LA, I had a good 4 hours of drive time. During the drive back, I got to reminisce on the time I actually lived in good old sunny San Diego. It was nice and comfortable, and I still, only sometimes, kind of miss living there. It was really good initially, but after the first 3 years, things had gotten very expensive, making it impossible to continue living in San Diego comfortably. Thank God I had picked up the new job opening they had in Vegas, saving me a fortune, even after taxes. I was immersed in remembering the good old days when I realized I was near Norco, so I pulled over for some coffee and snacks for the road. I also called my girlfriend who was about to get off from work. "Hey babe, I'm just getting back on the road now, so I should be home before midnight. I'll see you then, and I love you. Bye." An hour into my trip, and I was really getting pumped up, excited to get back home and meet my beautiful girlfriend. I had the radio tuned up, listening to my favorite podcast, Mystery Night with James Goodman. It was always exciting to listen to it for me. It often brought out many thrilling and mysterious occurrences out in the open. Many people shared their weird and eerie experiences, some even deemed supernatural. Even now, some caller had called in and was busy telling about something that he had come across while he was a truck driver back in the 90s. He had a scary encounter picking up a man that was stranded on the side of the road. Even though I never really believed in paranormal activities, I was, however, really invested in mysteries. So even when I already knew it was probably going to be some caption, I started listening in on what the man was saying anyway.
"I pulled over in front of the man, and I offered him a ride back to the nearest town. Instead of talking to me and telling me what the issue was or who he was, the man didn't say much to me. Just kept on mumbling, 'I just want to go home and I just want to get out of here.' It was strange, but I chalked it up to him being shaken up or something and decided to not push it and let it go. About a mile in, we came across a car by the side of the road. It looked to be abandoned there. Maybe it ran out of gas or something, I had reasoned with myself. I decided to step out of the truck and see if anyone was in the car. I left the man inside my truck on my passenger seat and got out. I checked out the car, but there was no one inside, so I headed back to my truck. The man was gone. I looked around, but he was nowhere to be found. I hurried inside of my truck once again, ready to bolt out of there. While starting my truck, I checked my rearview mirror, only to see that the car was gone as well, as if no one had ever been there except for me. I put my truck in gear and got the hell out of there, and never looked back.
With this, the caller on the radio had finished his story. It was certainly interesting, although I didn't know how true it really was. I was certainly thinking that the truck driver might have been sleep deprived or high and had imagined all this. But the one thing he said that had stuck with me was all of this had happened on the same route I was currently driving on. Just pure coincidence, I assured myself, and kept on moving. Another hour into the drive, I was starting to feel my eyes getting heavy. The stiffness was already starting to set into my leg. I hadn't had any sleep in over 20 hours, and I had constantly been on the move for a while now. It was quite understandable that the tiredness was taking over my body. So instead of continuing on with my drive, I decided to take a break. I drove off the freeway and stopped my car by the side of the road to rest my eyes for a minute. Just then, I saw a man come running out of the open desert, screaming for me to help him, to let him in before they get him. The radio story was still fresh in my mind, so instead of engaging with the man, I decided to get the heck out of there. I started up the car and gunned it back into the main road. I was speeding up when I saw a coyote run out in front of the car. Trying to swerve the car and miss the coyote, I pulled off the road. In my panic and need to save the animal, I didn't see the light pole right in front of me. And by the time I noticed it, it was already too late. I could not hit the brakes in time, so I ended up hitting the light pole. The speed of my car made the impact worse. Fortunately, I wasn't badly injured and was still conscious after the hit. I got out of the car with my head bleeding. I looked at the damage the accident had caused to the car. It was completely totaled. There was no way it was going to start again. I was out there on my own, and it was still a good 3 miles away from the freeway. I pulled out my phone as a last-ditch attempt to get some help, but that window had also closed down soon enough. I hadn't even charged my phone before I had left my brother's place, and now it was dead. I had no way of contacting anyone anymore. Just then, I remembered seeing a motel a mile down the road, so instead of staying stranded, I decided to head towards there. I left a note on my car with my number on it just in case a tow man came across my car. I walked up to the motel. It was a very old and dreary-looking building. It also looked very desolate, and there were only a few cars on the lot. While walking up there, I didn't see very many people on the premises. In fact, I only saw an old lady sitting at the pool with her feet in the water. I checked in at the front desk, but there was no one there. I saw a bell sitting there on the desk, so I began banging the hell out of that thing, waiting for someone to come out and check me in. It was around 5 minutes later when finally, a large man stepped out from behind a curtain with a baseball bat in his hand, hitting the front desk and yelling,
"I heard you the first time, you lunatic! Hold your horses!"
I almost jumped out the front window as the man freaked me out when he suddenly popped out from behind the curtain. I was not expecting anyone to emerge out from there. The guy gave me a once-over, but thankfully did not ask many questions about my state or anything. He silently handed me the key to room 14 on the second floor when I asked for a room to stay the night in. I took the key and went on my way without giving the man a backward glance. It was all a bit too creepy for me in there. The man, as well as the whole building, had all my senses on high alert. If I had any other option available for the night, I would have definitely chosen that one over this motel. But I was out of options, and now out of quite a lot of blood too. I desperately needed to crash somewhere, and it was just one night anyway, so I decided to swallow down my unease and man up. I mean, how bad could it really be? I reasoned with myself. But, as they say, famous last words. I was just about to eat up my own words too. It was that bad. As I was working my way up the stairs, I looked down and saw that lady, all but her head now submerged in the pool. That would not have been much out of the ordinary or even noteworthy on any normal day or place. But what made me stop in my tracks was the sight that accompanied the woman. For just a second there, I thought I must have been seeing wrong, as I could not believe what I was seeing. The water inside the pool was pitch black and full of waste. I couldn't fathom for the life of me why the hell the pool would be in such disgusting condition, and just why she would be enjoying submerging in that shit. No pun intended. Maybe it's a new trend or something, a new beauty treatment in these days. God knows they always have some weird-ass things going on in the name of beauty, I reasoned with myself, trying to rationalize the sight in front of me. As if sensing me gaping at her, suddenly the woman looked up and stared right at me. She gave me a smirk, lifting her head to the side and pulled one of her breasts out of the murky water. She didn't stop just there. She opened her mouth and showed me her tongue, practically licking the air in front of her, all the while maintaining eye contact with me. She must have thought it looked attractive or something, as I could tell she was clearly trying to seduce me, but all it did was make me blanch into revulsion. That was enough for me to get a move on as I swiftly looked away from the sight, trying to keep what little food I had in me still down. I rushed upstairs into my room, quickly slamming the door behind me. I felt a shudder of disgust run through me as I actually prayed that I would not run into that woman for the remainder of my stay. I shook my head to try to get rid of that image from my mind and decided to look around my room instead. That too, unfortunately, did not prove to be a welcome distraction. The condition of the room was just abhorrent. It looked and smelled like it hadn't been opened in months, if not years. The bed sheets were quite musky and even had started growing mold here and there. The walls were in a similar condition, damp, gray, and moldy at the bottom. The bathroom was not faring much better in comparison, all gray with mildew and moisture. The bathtub was also full of dirt rings aligning the bottom. It was all horrible and a clear health hazard, but alas, I did not have any other option left for me. And I reckon that the people that ran the motel knew that too. That's why it was in such a bad condition in the first place. So I decided to swallow the discomfort and revulsion creeping inside of me and just spend the night there anyway. I kicked the covers off the bed and found that the mattress was at least in a better condition than the sheets, so I got up on the bed and tried to get some sleep. Suddenly, I could smell my girlfriend, Anna's perfume. She was all around me, all over me. I could feel her undress me, and instead of helping her in doing so, I decided to just lay back and let her have her way with me. It was more fun that way, and I was thoroughly enjoying everything she had in store for me. My enjoyment was cut short, however, when I suddenly came out of my sleep and into the conscious world. For a minute, I laid there, confused and thinking, how did that come to be? I didn't remember going back home last night. My confusion immediately evaporated as soon as I fully regained my senses and opened my eyes. All my calm and the haze of pleasure was out in an instant. The lady from the pool, with her breast out, was actually on top of me, riding me as if there was no tomorrow, as if her life depended on it. I tried to move away from her, but her hold became even stronger. She had a death grip on me as she tried to hold me in place underneath her. She had a crazed look on her face, and her movements became even more frenzied as she kept moaning and shouting. I freed my arm from her clutches and punched her square in the face, and that brought her to an abrupt halt. Taking advantage of her momentary confusion, I pushed her off of me and jumped out of bed. I started screaming, blasting questions at her, trying to make sense of what exactly was going on there.
What the hell is going on in here?
I bellowed at the top of my lungs. I was so worked up and angry that I was breathing heavily by the end of my tirade. The woman, however, remained entirely unbothered and impassive in the face of my rage. She just kept smirking and staring at me with hooded eyes, all the while she kept fondling her chest. My shouts must have been pretty loud, as soon enough the guy from the front desk burst into the room, running in and yelling,
"Mother, what did I tell you about bothering the new guest?"
That suggested it was a regular occurrence, something that had happened to other guests of the motel too. That made me feel even more disgusted at the woman, and that the word mother told me she might be the owner of the motel, or at least one of them. What kind of fucked up worth ethics did this place run on? I thought absently as I kept watching the woman. It did not look like her son's scolding had any effect on her, as she did not look remorseful at all. But still, she huffed and got up from my bed. She passed by me, licking her lips and giving me a coy wink as she walked out of the room, still half naked, even if her supposed son was right there. He didn't look too bothered by it anyway. As soon as she walked out of the room, I turned towards the front desk man, ready to demand some answers and blow his head off, but I did not get any chance to do so. The man turned to me and gave me a look that must have been his attempt at an apologetic smile. It did not look apologetic at all, at least not for the right reasons. Before I could question him, he was out the door in an instant, following behind the woman. And I was left there standing alone in the room, trying to get myself together and thinking, this just has to be all a nightmare. I rushed over to close and lock the door after the mother and son duo had left my room. I distinctly remember locking the door before going to sleep. So how did that woman enter my room? That was the question I kept asking myself. Maybe I was too tired and didn't actually lock the door, I considered. But whatever it was too late already. It was just a waste of time now to still be focusing on that. So I let out a sigh and double-checked the door. It was time to get some more sleep in, I decided, and went back to bed. The bed was really cold and moist now, and it reeked. First, the fragrance had been of my girlfriend's perfume, but now it was just musky and rotten. I also kept feeling like someone was staring at me. No matter how hard I tried or how many times I checked the door, I could not get rid of that feeling. And I kept feeling something crawling all over my body. When I checked to see if there was really something there or if it was just my imagination, there were maggots. Maggots were crawling on the bed. I screamed and jumped out of the bed, trying to shake them off of myself and the bed. Thankfully, there weren't many, so I killed all that I could see, stomping them under my feet. But the thought of them and the accompanying sight was enough to not let me enter the dreamland once again. I spent the whole night awake, sitting up in the bed and not letting my guard down, just waiting for morning to come. By morning, I was ready to get the hell out of that shithole. I hurriedly came down to the front desk as soon as the sun was up in the sky. Just then, I heard police cars and fire engines driving down the street. I turned towards the guy at the front desk, asking him what all the commotion was about. What the hell had happened out there this early in the morning?
Some fool ran off the road and decapitated himself, hitting a light pole,
he replied, all the while looking meaningfully at me. I couldn't read what was on his face or what he was trying to tell me, but the description sounded oddly familiar and ominous, giving me a weird sense of déjà vu. I shook my head, trying to get rid of the sudden trepidation that had entered my mind. I ran outside and down the street just to see police cars surrounding the abandoned car. It caused me even more concern when I saw nothing but my own car there. Suddenly, very afraid, I ran over to the covered body on the ground and saw that it was my own body, without the head. I was in denial and then in despair at the sudden new development of my being. Just then, I heard someone calling me over. It was the man from the front desk.
You're with us now, so come back inside.
I yelled at the top of my lungs, trying to catch someone's attention, but no one could hear or see me. No one paid me any mind as they carried my body away.